Now we discuss about the profile of the cyber security attacker. That is, we will discuss about the attackers and the cyber security professionals and cyber warfare and all the summary. So we will discuss detail about the profile of a cyber attacker, types of attacker, internal and external threats, and also the cyber warfare overview of a cyber warfare, what is cyber warfare, and the purpose of the cyber warfare. So types of attackers. So attackers are individuals or groups who attempt to exploit vulnerability for personal or financial gain. Attackers are interested in everything from credit cards to product designs and anything with value. So first type of attackers are amateurs. These people are sometimes called script kiddies. These are usually attackers with little or no skill, often using existing tools or instructions found on the internet to launch the attacks. Some of them are just curious, while others are trying to demonstrate their skills and cause harm. They may be using basic tools, but the results can still be devastating. And the second type are hackers. This group of attackers break into computers or networks to gain access. Depending on the intent of the break-in, these attackers are classified as white, grey or black hats. So these are white, grey and black hats. When coming to the white hat attackers break into networks or computers to discover weakness so that the security of these systems can be improved. These break-ins are done with prior permission and any results are reported back to the owner. That is, these are for a fruitful purpose. That is, these are they do not cause any harm to the organization or the attack on which they have made. On the other hand, black hat attackers take advantage of any vulnerability for illegal personal or financial or political gain. Grey hat attackers are somewhere between white and black hat attackers. The grey hat attackers may find a vulnerability in a system. Grey hat attackers may report the vulnerability to the owners of the system if that action coincides with their agenda. Some grey hat hackers publish the facts about the vulnerability on the internet so that other attackers can exploit it. So if we read in depth about the white hat hackers, these are the ethical hackers who use their programming skills for good, ethical and legal purposes. White hat attackers or white hat hackers may perform network penetration tests in an attempt to compromise networks and systems by using their knowledge on the computer security systems to discover network vulnerabilities. That is, suppose how much strength you have made a metal, that is only be testing. Basically, for a testing purpose, these white hat hackers work. So security vulnerabilities are responded to the developers. For testing, you need to report to the developers for them to fix them before the vulnerabilities can be threatened. Some organizations award prizes or bounties to white hat hackers when they inform them of vulnerabilities. So it is a huge task for them. And when coming to the black hat attackers, these are unethical criminals who violate computer and network security for personal gain or for malicious reasons such as attacking networks. Black hat hackers exploit vulnerabilities to compromise computer and network systems. When coming to the grey hat hackers, these are individuals who commit crimes and do arguably unethical things, but not for personal gain or to cause damage. An example would be someone who compromises a network without permission and then discloses the vulnerability publicly. A grey hat hacker may disclose a vulnerability to the affected organization after having compromised their network. This allows the organization to fix the problem. It is nothing but basically in between the white hat and grey hat hackers, in between the white hat hackers and also the black hat hackers. Also, organized hackers are also there. These hackers include organizations of cyber criminals, hacktivists, terrorists and state-sponsored hackers. Cyber criminals are usually group of professional criminals focused on control, power and wealth. The criminals are highly sophisticated and organized, and they may even provide cybercrime as a service to other criminals. Hacktivists make political statements to create awareness to issues that are important to them. State-sponsored hackers gather intelligence or commit sabotage on behalf of their government. These attackers are usually highly trained and well funded, and their attacks are focused on specific goals that are beneficial to their government. So now about the internal and external threats. Internal security threats. Attacks can be originated from within an organization or from outside an organization, as shown in the figure. An internal user, such as employee or contract partner, can accidentally or intentionally mishandle the confidential data, threaten the operations of internal servers or network infrastructure devices, facilitate outside attacks by connecting infected USB media into the corporate computer system, accidentally invite malware onto the network through malicious email or websites. Internal threats also have the potential to cause greater damage than the external threats because internal users have direct access to the building and its infrastructure devices. Employees also have knowledge of the corporate network, its resources, and its confidential data, as well as different levels of user or administrative privileges. When coming to the external threats, security threats, external threats from amateurs or skilled attackers can exploit vulnerabilities in network or computing devices or use social engineering to gain access. The chart categorizes different types of cyber attacks. Outside attackers include organized attackers such as cyber criminals, hacktivists, terrorists, and state-sponsored hackers such as black hats, grey hats, white hats, amateurs. The insiders are employees, ex-employees, contract staff, and trusted partners, and so on. So, what is cyber warfare? Cyberspace has become another important dimension of warfare, where nations can carry out conflicts without clashes of traditional troops and machines. This allows countries with minimal military presence to be as strong as other nations in cyberspace. Cyber warfare is an internet-based conflict that involves the penetration of computer systems and networks of another nations. These attackers have the sources and expertise to launch massive internet-based attacks against other nations to cause damage or disrupt services, such as shutting down a power grid and so on. An example of state-sponsored attack involved the Stuxnet malware that was designed to damage Iran's nuclear enrichment plant. Stuxnet malware did not hijack targeted computers to steal information. It was designed to damage the physical equipment that was controlled by the computers. It used modular coding that was programmed to perform a specific task within the malware. It used stolen digital certificates so the attack appeared legitimate to the system. So such Stuxnet type of malware have brought the cyber warfare reality into a reality. Let us see a small clip regarding the Stuxnet malware in the Iran that has caused the Iranian nuclear power plants a great damage. So let us see more about what the Stuxnet malware is. So let us see this a sample clip.
In June last year, a computer virus called Stuxnet was discovered lurking in the databanks of power plants, traffic control systems, and factories around the world. 20 times more complex than any previous virus code, it had an array of capabilities. Among them, the ability to turn up the pressure inside nuclear reactors or switch off oil pipelines, and Stuxnet could tell the system operators everything was normal. Unlike most viruses, Stuxnet doesn't carry the usual forged security clearance that helps viruses burrow into systems. It actually had a real clearance, stolen from one of the most reputable computer technology companies in the world. It exploited security gaps that system creators are unaware of. These holes are known as 0 days, and the most successful viruses exploit them. The details of a 0 day can be sold on the black market for $100,000. Stuxnet took advantage of 20 0 days. But once it got into a system, it didn't always activate. Buried deep in the Stuxnet code was a specific target. Without that target, the virus remained dormant. What was it looking to shut down? The centrifuges that spin nuclear material at Iran's enrichment facilities. Stuxnet was a weapon. the first to be made entirely out of code. The Washington-based Institute for Science and International Security says the virus may have shut down 1,000 centrifuges at Natanz, Iran's main enrichment facility, last year. In November, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear watchdog, said Iran had suspended work at its nuclear facilities without explaining why. Many observers credited Stuxnet. Last month, the Iranian government conceded the virus's infection of the Bashir nuclear facility, still under construction, meant that switching the plant on could lead to a national electricity blackout. Iran has responded to the attack with an open call for hackers to join the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and has reportedly amassed the second largest online army in the world. So who was behind Stuxnet? There's no evidence beyond rumour. Some have it that Israel is responsible because the virus code apparently contains references to the Hebrew Bible. Others believe the US was involved in the testing and development. The finger has even been pointed at Siemens mobile phone company, whose software is used by the Iranian regime. The most important question may not be who designed it, but who will redesign it. The evolution has been so fast that 9 months after its detection, the first virus that could crash power grids or destroy oil pipelines is available online for anyone to download and tinker with. You can watch people on YouTube pulling Stuxnet apart. It's an open source weapon. And there's no way of knowing who will use it or what they will use it for.
Let us see what is the purpose of cyber warfare. The main purpose of cyber warfare is to gain advantage over adversaries, whether they are nations or competitors. A nation can continuously invade other nations' infrastructure, steal defense secrets, and gather information about technology to narrow the gaps in its industries and military. Besides industrial and militaristic espionage, cyber war can sabotage the infrastructure of other nations and cost lives in the targeted nations. For example, an attack can disrupt the power grid of a major city. Traffic would be disrupted. The exchange of goods and services is halted. Patients cannot get the care needed in emergency situations. Access to the internet may also be disrupted. By affecting the power grid, attack can affect the everyday life of ordinary citizens. Furthermore, compromised sensitive data can give the attackers the ability to blackmail personnel with government. The information may allow an attacker to pretend to be authorized user to access sensitive information or equipment. If the government cannot defend against the cyber attacks, the citizens may lose confidence over the government's ability to protect them. Cyber warfare can destabilize a nation, disrupt commerce, and affect the citizens' faith in their government without ever physically invading the targeted nation. So such a dangerous threat can the cyber threat can pose, or the cyber warfare is a most dangerous thing that can ever happen to the nation's infrastructure. So till now, in the first video and now, I have explained the features and characteristics of the cyber security and explained why the demand for the cyber security professionals will only continue to increase. The content, and I also explained why your personal online identity and data is vulnerable to the cyber criminals. It and gave some tips on how you can protect your personal online identity and data, and also discussed what is the organizational data is and what it is, where it is, and why it must be protected, and who the cyber attackers are, and why and what they want. Cyber security professionals must have same skills as the cyber attackers, and cyber security professionals must work within the bounds of the local, national, and international law. The cyber security professionals must also use their skill ethically. So till now we have discussed this in the previous videos, and till now we have discussed this. So let us see a new aspect of the cyber security we will see. So attacks, concepts, and techniques. So I will cover the ways that cyber security professionals analyze what has happened after a cyber attack. It explains security software and hardware vulnerabilities and the different categories of security vulnerabilities, the different types of malicious software known as malware, and the symptoms of the malware are discussed, and different ways that attackers can infiltrate a system is covered, as well as the denial of service attacks. Most modern cyber attacks are considered to be the blended attacks. Blended attacks use multiple techniques to infiltrate and attack a system. When an attack cannot be prevented, it is the job of a cybersecurity professional to reduce the impact of the attack. So, finding the security vulnerabilities is another key task. Security vulnerabilities are a kind of software or hardware defects. After gaining knowledge of vulnerability, malicious users attempt to exploit it. An exploit is the term used to describe a program written to take advantage of a known vulnerability. The act of using an exploit against a vulnerability is referred to as an attack. Once more, I'll repeat. The act of using an exploit against a vulnerability is referred to as an attack. The goal of an attack is to gain access to the system, the data it hosts, or to a specific resource. There are two types of vulnerabilities: software vulnerability and hardware vulnerability. When coming to software vulnerabilities are usually introduced by errors in the operating systems or application code. Despite all the effort companies put into finding and patching software vulnerabilities, it is common for new vulnerabilities to surface. Microsoft, Apple, and other operating system producers release patches and updates almost every day. Application updates are also common. Applications such as web browsers, mobile apps, and web servers are often updated by the companies or organizations responsible for them. In 2015, a major vulnerability called Sinful Knock was discovered in Cisco IOS. This vulnerability allowed attackers to gain control of enterprise-grade routers such as the legacy Cisco 1841, 2811, and 3825 routers. The attackers could then monitor all the network communication and had the ability to infect other network devices. This vulnerability was introduced into the system when an altered iOS version was installed in the routers. To avoid this, always verify the integrity of the downloaded iOS image and limit the physical access of the equipment to the authorized personnel only. The goal of software updates is to stay current and avoid exploitation of vulnerabilities. While some companies have penetration testing teams dedicated to search, find, and patch software vulnerabilities before they can get exploited, third-party security researchers also specialize in finding vulnerabilities in software. Google's Project Zero is a great example of such practice. That is, the software updates is updated to avoid the exploitation of the vulnerabilities. So while some companies like Google penetration testing teams dedicated to search, find, and patch software vulnerabilities before they can get exploited, third-party security researchers also specialize in finding vulnerabilities in software. So this is called the project example is Google's Project Zero is a great example of such practice. After discovering a number of vulnerabilities in the various software used by end users, Google formed a permanent team dedicated to finding software vulnerabilities. Google's security research can be found here. And also hardware vulnerabilities. Hardware vulnerabilities are often introduced by hardware design flaws. RAM memory, for example, is essentially capacitors installed very close to one another. It was discovered that due to proximity, constant changes applied to one of these capacitors could influence neighboring capacitors. Based on that design flaw, an exploit called row hammer was created. By repeatedly rewriting memory in the same address, the row hammer exploit allows data to be retrieved from nearby addressed memory cells, even if the cells are protected. Hardware vulnerabilities are specific to device models and are not generally exploited through random compromising attempts. While hardware exploits are more common in highly targeted attacks, traditional malware protection and a physical security are sufficient protection for the everyday user. So let's categorize these security vulnerabilities into some categories. Most software security vulnerabilities fall into one of the following categories. First is buffer overflow. This vulnerability occurs when the data is written beyond the limits of a buffer. The buffers are memory areas located to an application. By changing the data beyond the boundaries of a buffer, the application access memory allocated to other processes. This can lead to a system crash, data compromise, or provide escalation to privileges. And next is non-validated input. The programs often work with the data input. This data coming into the program could have malicious content designed to force the program to behave in an unintended way. Consider a program that receives an image for processing. A malicious user could craft an image file with invalid image dimensions. The maliciously crafted dimensions could force the program to allocate buffers of incorrect and unexpected sizes. So this is called non-validated input, and that is also leading to the buffer overflow. And the next is the race conditions. This vulnerability is when the output of an event depends on the ordered or timed in outputs. A race condition becomes a source of vulnerability when the required ordered or timed events do not occur in the correct order or proper timing. So it is basically a timing error. And weakness in the security practices. Systems and sensitive data can be protected through techniques such as authentication, authorization, and encryption. Developers should not attempt to create their own security algorithms because it will likely introduce vulnerabilities. It is strongly advised that developers use security libraries that have already created, tested, and verified. And next is access control problems. Access control is the process of controlling who does what and ranges from who does what. That is, accessing problem is nothing but anyone who want to access some data. So basically their control is being came as a threat. That is, access control is a process of controlling who does what and ranging from managing physical access to equipment to dictating who has access to a resource such as file, what they can do with it, such as read or change the file. Many security vulnerabilities are created by improper use of access control. That is, suppose if authorized people are not given the access control, then the problems arises. Nearly all access controls and security practices can be overcome if attacker has physical access to target equipment. For example, no matter what you set a file's permissions to, the operating system cannot prevent someone from bypassing the operating system and reading the data directly off the disk. To protect the machine and the data it contains, the physical access must be restricted, and encryption techniques must be used to protect the data from being stolen or corrupted. So now let us see the types of malware. So what is actually the malware is it malware is a short form of malicious software, or malware. Malicious software or malware. Malware is any code that can be used to steal data, bypass access controls, or cause harm or compromise the system. Below are few common types of malware. Spyware. What is spyware? This malware is designed to track and spy on the user. Spyware often includes activity trackers, keystroke collection, and data capture. In an attempt to overcome security measures, spyware often modifies security settings. Spyware often bundles itself with legitimate software or with Trojan horses. And next thing is adware. Advertising supported software is designed to automatically deliver advertisements. Adware is often installed with some versions of software. Some adware is designed to only deliver advertisements, but it is also common for adware to come with spyware. Bot. From the word robot, a bot is a malware designed to automatically perform action, usually online. While most bots are harmful, one increasing use of malicious bots are botnets. Several computers are infected with bots, which are programmed to quietly wait for commands provided by the attackers. Ransomware. This malware is designed to hold a computer system or the data it contains captive until a payment is made. That is, you can say it as a kidnap and the legal transactions or settlement takes place. That is, ransomware is nothing but it is designed to hold a computer system or data it contains captive until a payment is made. Ransomware usually works by encrypting data in your computer with a key unknown to the user. Some other versions of the ransomware can take advantage of specific system vulnerabilities to lock down the system. Ransomware is spread by a downloaded file or software vulnerability. Next thing is scareware. This is a type of malware designed to persuade the user to take a specific action based on fear. Scareware foregoes pop-up windows that resembles operating system dialog windows. These windows convey forged messages stating that the system is at risk or need the execution of a specific program to return to the normal operation. In reality, no problems were assessed or detected, and if the user agrees and clears the mentioned program to execute, his or her system will be infected with the malware. See, it is nothing but it is a type of malware that is designed to persuade the user to take a specific action based on the fear. That is, it a scareware foregoes the pop-up windows that resemble the operating system dialog box. These windows convey the forged messages stating that the system is at risk or needs the execution of a specific program, like antivirus. This is the antivirus, please download, your system is at risk. So that messages will pop up in your windows. And what you do out of fear, total computer is infected with the virus, please download the antivirus, click on this link to download the antivirus. So those are the scareware messages. Because of the scare, you download them. So that is a type of malware. And next thing is rootkit. This malware is designed to modify the operating system to create a backdoor. Attackers then use the backdoor to access the computer remotely. Most rootkits take advantage of software vulnerabilities to perform the privilege escalation and modify system files. It is also common for the rootkits to modify system forensics and monitoring tools, making them very hard to detect. Often, a computer infected by a rootkit must be wiped and reinstalled. That is, it is a rootkit is one of the more dangerous because it can access backdoor to your computer. Most rootkits can be downloaded. Those are the downloaded files to they take advantage of the system software vulnerabilities to perform their modification for system files. So rootkits common for actually the rootkits are nothing but those are modifying systems. Basically, they enter the software and they eat the system files, and they modify the system forensics and monitoring tools, making them very hard to detect. Often a computer infected by a rootkit must be wiped and reinstalled. Next thing is virus. A virus is a malicious executable code that is attached to other executable files. Often legitimate programs, that is, it is attached to an executable file. Often a legitimate programs, that is, when you run an application on it, when you run a decent suppose a WordPad or Microsoft Windows Word or Excel, anything, if you open, if the virus catches that, suppose it has been encrypted or some malicious virus has been attached to it, it execute basically it attaches to the executable files. Most viruses require an end user activation and can activate at a specific time or date. Viruses can be harmless and simply display a picture, or they can be destructive, such as those that modify or delete the data. Viruses can also be programmed to mutate to avoid detection. Most viruses are now spread by the USB drives, optical disk, network shares, or emails. So this is the about the viruses. That is, first thing you have to know about the virus is it is an executable code that mainly attaches to the executable files. That is oftenly most trusted applications, legitimate programs. And the next thing is most virus require end user activation. That is, who are end user activation, that is nothing but can activate at a specific time or date, and it is an require an end user activation. That is, the final user activation is needed by clicking only that is by clicking or by accepting the terms and conditions or some pressing the buttons only it can activate. Viruses can be harmless and can simply display a picture, but also they can be destructive, such as those that can be modify or delete the data. Viruses can also be programmed to mutate to avoid detection. That is, we can use the virus to protect against the virus, so that can also be used. Most viruses are spread by the USB drives, optical disk, and network shares or emails. And the next thing is Trojan horse. A Trojan horse is a malware that carries out malicious operations under the guise of a desired operation. That is, A Trojan horse is a malware that carries out the malicious operations under the guise of the desired operation. That is, it has a specific task to do inside the system. This malicious code exploits the privileges of the user that runs it. Often, Trojans are found in image files, audio files, or games. A Trojan horse differs from a virus because it binds itself to a non-executable file. So it is simply virus is attached to the executable file, whereas Trojan is attached to the non-executable file, and remaining same is much similar intent and much similar work. What are worms? Worms are malicious code that replicate themselves by independently exploiting the vulnerabilities in the network. Worms usually slow down the networks, whereas a virus requires a host program to run. Worms can run by themselves. Other than the initial infection, they no longer require the user participation. After a host is infected, the worm is able to spread very quickly over the network. Worms share similar patterns. They all have an enabling vulnerability, a way to propagate themselves, and they all contain a payload. So basically, the payload is nothing but the infected code or the malicious content, malicious code, nothing but payload. Worms are responsible for some of the most devastating attacks on the internet. And an example, you can see that in 2001, a code red worm has infected nearly 700 servers. Within 19 hours, the worm has infected over nearly 3 lakh servers. 3 lakh servers. So that is a threat that a worm faces. Worm is nothing but a continuously erupting or continuously replicating code. Man in the middle, mid-M attack. What is the man in the middle? Man in the middle allows the attacker to take control over a device without the user's knowledge. With that level of access, the attacker can intercept and capture the user information before relaying it to the intended destination. That is, man in the middle attacks are widely used to steal the financial information. Many malware and techniques exist to provide attackers with man in the middle capabilities. That is, man in the middle is nothing but between your system and the user. There is another middleman that is hidden by the user, and he can easily take all the information in that are present in the system. Many malware and techniques exist to provide attackers with man in the middle capabilities. And next thing is man in the mobile capabilities. A variation of man in the middle, MITMO, is a type of attack used to take control over a mobile device. When infected, the mobile device can be instructed to exfiltrate the user sensitive information and send into the attackers. Zeus, an example of a exploit with man in the mobile capabilities, allows attackers quietly to capture two-step verification SMS messages sent to the users. That is, when the bank account sends or during any transaction, when when the bank statement, when the bank servers send the SMS messages or the OTP verification passwords to the user, these man in the mobile, they take those messages and without coming to the user. That is, when the bank sends the SMS to the mobile, without reaching the mobile itself only, the man in the mobile variation type of attack can exploit those messages, and they take those OTP informations. So there are symptoms of malware. Regardless of the type of the malware a system has been infected with, there are common malware symptoms. There is an increase in the CPU usage, there is a decrease in the computer speed, the computer freezes or crashes often, there is a decrease in the web browsing speed, there are unexplainable problems with the network connections, files are modified, files are deleted, there is a presence of unknown files, programs or desktop icons, there are unknown processes running, programs are turning off and reconfiguring themselves, email is being sent without the user's knowledge or consent. So let us have an overview of again the types of malwares: both ransomware, rootkit, spyware, virus, Trojan horse, adware, man in the mobile, man in the middle, scareware and worm, and so on. So these are the types of the malwares that are generally seen.